Min Kim is one of those generational talents. She can make the violin sing in such a way that it resonates the soul and moves you to tears. She was a child prodigy, discovered in Korea at the age of 6, before the whole family moved to London so that she could be admitted into the prestigious Purcell School for Young Musicians, as the youngest student ever admitted. By the time she turned 8, she had outgrown her adult teacher in less than a year. And by 13, she made her debut with the Berlin Symphony Orchestra. At 16, the legendary Rugario Ricci said that she was the most talented violinist he had ever taught. Later, he instructed her for free, admitting that it wouldn't be fair to charge because he was learning as much from her as he could teach her. And yet her talent came with all the familiar constraints associated with generational talent. Yes, she was revered and admired, but her talent forced her to live in the gilded cage of demanding and often domineering teachers, a rigid practice schedule, and bearing the weight of the world's expectations for her. But in all the work and the sacrifice, it seemed worth it when at age 21, she discovered her soulmate in the form of a 300-year-old Stradivarius violin. Without a second's thought, she remortgaged her London flat to meet the dealer's asking price of $700,000. And overnight, her Strad, as she called it, became her everything. The fulfillment of her promise, the key to her art, but also her lover, child, twin, and very self. It was the completion, sort of completion we all seek, the divinity we all yearn for, the glass slipper that finally fits. Simply put, it was the life of happily ever after. And yet, as we know, fairy tales never really end in that fashion, despite what the Disney Corporation may lucratively suggest to us. Life, real, lived life, cannot exist apart from loss. And sadly, Min Kim knew that to be true and knew it was a possibility. Although she guarded her Strad 24/7, never letting it out of her sight, there was that one fateful day in the cafe in the Euston train station when she turned her head for the briefest of seconds, and it was gone, stolen, whisked off to the criminal underground black market where priceless objects go. And you don't have to be a violinist, a generational talent, or to have lost something equaling $700,000 in value to relate to this story. No, we all live in a world that promises endless progress, a world that suggests that the life you want is just there, just out of your reach. The yearning life, free life, is there for you if only you tried a little bit harder, worked a lot longer, maybe ate this special diet, or if you found the perfect relationship, or if only you could get those kids graduated and living out of the basement, or maybe locate the best care for your aging parents. If we just keep pushing harder and smiling wider, it'll all be worth it, right? That's what we tell ourselves. We allow ourselves to believe that only then, when we achieve that life, that I'll feel better, whole, that I can rest. Many of us die chasing the goal of security and comfort. But there are always those moments that suggest it could be different, that it doesn't have to be that way. What do we do when our world is shaken? When all that we have worked for is stolen or lost to us? Who will we be then? What will life mean to us? This is precisely the narrative we step into in today's gospel. After journeying around the countryside, Jesus and his disciples have finally arrived at the center of society. They've triumphantly made it to Jerusalem and are encamped at the temple, where Jesus is arguing with the powers that be and demonstrating his generational talent, shocking the masses by flipping tables in the marketplace and outsmarting those scribes and priests. The crowds are spellbound by his performance. His disciples, too, are particularly enamored by this experience. Riding on his coattails, this was their moment, too. They're no longer nobody losers from the backwaters of society. No, they, too, had arrived. All of their sacrifice and work have been vindicated. And so they're walking around the temple, case in the joint, meandering about, gawking. All of the gilded and spectacular stones that catch their attention, as if silently promising them significance and security, approval that they've looked for. Jesus sees them gaping at the table and animatedly discussing its splendor, and he too looks at the temple. He sees something different, however, and speaks some harsh words. As for these things that you see, the days will come when not one stone will be left on another. All will be thrown down. In Luke's gospel, Jesus calls out his disciples because they're looking and paying attention to the wrong things. They're looking to ground their worth and their very lives with the material support of the temple, big, strong walls to keep out horrible worries. But of course, worry doesn't work that way, does it? Of course they want something that's unshakable and unbreakable. Don't we all? Their misplaced hope would have been all too apparent to Luke's original audience. Even before Luke put pen to papyrus, quill to papyrus probably, the temple's destruction had already happened. In the year 70, the Romans marched into Jerusalem and destroyed the unbreakable temple in no time flat. Written 15 years after the fact, Luke uses the destruction of this magnificent temple to make a statement on the impermanence of human achievement. In response to their wonder at the temple's beauty, Jesus attempts to divert the attention of his audience from their fascination with these things that you see, to move their focus to something else. What exactly is not necessarily specified in this passage, or perhaps it is. I wonder if Jesus isn't teaching them a new kind of learning. Perhaps what he's pointing out to them is an impulse to be open to learning the lessons that life presents and not ignoring them, like we often do, hiding them from ourselves. You see, I think that most of us humans are too afraid to see life as it is, too scared to be present in the moment. And so we insulate ourselves, we mistake the temporary for the permanent, and replace the permanent for that which is temporary. We choose to see only obvious grandeur and splendor and power. We pretend that it's permanent, even when we know it's fleeting. And so we tend to overlook beauty in that which at first appearance may be unattractive, maybe even repulsive. Or if we let our focus remain only on the damaging, the destructive, and the harmful, we might just miss out on what's affirming, constructive, and encouraging. What Jesus is offering is a new kind of wisdom. Yes, he uses hyperbolic language to catch our attention, to draw our attention away from that insulating impulse we wrap ourselves in. He's telling us that life will be demanding, and our loyalties will be tested, and that we'll even be persecuted. And then he tells us not to attempt to prepare a defense, not to think ahead how to scheme a way through, but to remain open to the lessons that life will teach. We get so caught up in our world of relentless positive progress and that perfect life that we're just always on the verge of possessing. We miss the opportunity to live life now. I was reminded of this fact twice this week. On Wednesday evening, 140 or so people gathered downstairs in our undercroft to celebrate the Jamestown cross-country season, its completion, and to hand out awards to top performers and those who demonstrated excellence, even as they routinely struggled to even catch the back of the pack of those fastest runners. As she emceed the event, Coach Kristen Hockenberry shared the foundational philosophy of cross-country runners, a truth she told them on the first day of practice and every day thereafter. When kids began to whine, my youngest son most amongst them, she would say, "Nope, running never gets any easier, but you will get stronger. Running never gets any easier, but you will get stronger. You will learn to be present to the pain and be present in the moment." And if Jesus had been there, I have to believe he would have added, "And by your endurance, you will gain your souls." Being a clever folk, he probably would have punned on the souls and souls anyway. The message was remarkable, and it was close to the one that Ron McIntyre shared at youth group last Sunday, when he talked openly and frankly about life and death. He's obviously been thinking about both a lot these days. With his world shaken and the tempo of his body stumbling, he invited us to consider a question we'd all been pondering. What can death take from you? And then he testified with words and a wisdom that none can contradict. He affirmed that death can take nothing away from us. It can't steal anything that we've done or all the love that we've shared. The only thing death stops is a future that was never ours in the first place. That false future promised by the relentless progress that we think we need to strive towards. A future that was always around the corner and forever out of reach. Death and loss teach us to live now, to see and accept the impermanence of life. Ron is showing us this lesson. Today he's with his family in Yosemite National Park, creating memories and sharing love. He and JT planned a 14-mile out and back hike, and JT was going to climb up the back of Half Dome. I hope they have a great time, and I hope he comes back. And when he does come back, he's going to play as long as he can, making music and showing us how to live life in the present, with eyes looking at what's most important, not what's supposedly permanent. Since the death of his son, Jason, to the same brain cancer he has, Ron has often told me how his music has changed. He acknowledges how loss has made it all deeper and more real. Min Kim has shared the same sentiment. After the loss of her Strad, she couldn't play for years. But as the reference point of life shifted, she found permission to really and truly live life for the first time. Although her stolen violin was eventually recovered, and Min did have the opportunity to rebuy it, this time for several $million, she chose not to. She had discovered a world beyond the perfectionism of performance. Now when she plays, you can feel her pain, and you can hear its transformation. It invites the listener into the same journey. My friends, Jesus has a hard truth for us this morning. He invites us to see the opportunity created by tumultuous and saddening loss, to come aware to the reality of life, to reorient our sense of life away from those false promises of the future, and to anchor it into our current moment. Living this way doesn't get any easier. Every day it feels like your heart might break open. But we do get stronger. By your endurance, you will find a life that is worth living. A life that's worth sharing with those around you. Through loss and through joy. Stop chasing the life that you can never possess. Live the one you have. today. Amen.